All right, so how about this? Let's do D minor up here, this shape, from the 10th fret, all on the 10th fret. Okay, so here's our D minor. Now to do D minor over C, I'm just going to do the same low note. Like that. It sounds very Beatles-esque somehow. So I've got my ring finger on the 10th fret of the D, G, and B. More like an F style with a C bass. Oh, A shape like Cage System. Yeah, that A shape, even though it would be an F chord in this position. Yeah. All right, cool. So yeah, we've got this. And now let's just move all of this down one fret. That sounds really beautiful to me. That's the E7 over B, except I'm not doing E7, I'm just doing an E. Just a triad. All right, so this I think is really heavy. I think it's powerful. It sounds really powerful. I actually think it'd probably be more powerful if it weren't a 7th chord. Wherever it goes next is going to be a big deal. But where it goes next, unfortunately, is not a big deal. It kind of more or less stays stationary. D minor over C, E7 over B to E7. Okay, so let's try to force ourselves in a different direction. So this E7 that's coming up, let's just keep our E triad, but let's change our low note to be the 7, since we didn't have a 7 in our E7 over B in this case, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this note, which is on the 5th, this will be our 6th, I'm going to move it up to the 7th, the flat 7th, it makes it E7. So now it's like that. I got the same high notes on the 9th fret using my index finger and my middle finger on the 10th fret of the E string. So now it's a 3rd inversion because we have the 7th in the bass. Well, now, yeah. Okay, so now we have an E minor 7 flat 5. There's a lot of cool things we could do here. Let's go ahead and just start with our there's a lot of cool things coming to my mind. I'm just trying to pick one. How about this? Let's go ahead and start off with our ordinary E minor 7 flat 5 like this, which is where you do an E minor, right? All on the 12th fret. But we have to lower the 5th, which is the B string, down a fret. And so it becomes... It is a little tight. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this third inversion as well, which means I'm going to have the flat 7 as the root. Now, if this is the root, or not as the root, but as the bass. Now, this is the root, so I'm going to move it down 2 frets back to our D and play that same chord. I'm using my index finger on the 10th fret of the, yeah, and it's basically, it's like a G minor chord with my index, right, on the 5th, which is the same as to say an E minor 7 flat 5 with my index finger on the 7th. So you start to see how these chords are all related to one another. And now let's see how this sounds. We got our D minor slash C, E over B, E7 over D, and E minor 7 flat 5. And this where this goes next will be very important. I mean, voicing's always important, so. It's really interesting. To me, that gives like a very clear E7 and a sustained feeling like, oh, we didn't end where I thought we would. And the reason for that really is that you got an E7 chord. This is what we talked about last time. It's functioning or non-functioning. Which is it? You tell me. E7 to E minor 7 flat 5. It's pretty easy. The proper question to ask is my E the 5 of the next chord? Is my E the 5 of E? No way. No way. Okay, and so does that mean it's functioning or non-functioning? Non-functioning, exactly. And that's if it were functioning, it would sound like this. No, that sounds like it finished. Like if we had if our song went like this. Oh, that's a really pretty progression. Now it's pretty as it is, but it's imagine you really expected that, like you heard that enough to where you're like. Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming to the show. And instead, you hear this. Good night, everybody. Psych. Right? Like, oh, whoa, we didn't go home. We didn't go home at all. Like, you think you're on the way home. You're on the road. And then you walk into the door, and it's Twilight Zone. This isn't my house. It was outside. Outside, it was my house. I walked in, and I'm in a different dimension here. There's like me and my wife sitting at the table, and me looks over at me and goes, you know, and then you cut the credits. But no, the song doesn't cut the credits. It continues on to an A7 flat 9. So let's go from here. This, which you'll notice is kind of interesting. It seems a bit like of a prolonged cadence in a way, even though it is a 5 chord. So instead of going from E7 to A, it goes from E7 to E minor 7 flat 5 to A. But then it's an A7, so it's still not resolved. But anyway, here's what we did. We did the E minor 7 flat 5 with this third inversion. Now we have an A7 sharp flat 9. I'm just going to do an A7 first. Oh, it's so beautiful. Man, epic. Okay, what I'm doing here is I've got my index finger on the 9th fret of the E string, which is the 3rd of the chord. I have my ring finger an octave above that, so that's also on the 3rd. And then I've got my pinky on the 12th fret of the G string. And then I have my middle finger on the root, which is the B string 10th fret. All right. So here's a 7th chord, but it's not altered the way they're suggesting I do. And so what that gives me now is this. And I just went to the D we started with, the D minor. This to me is so pretty. I mean, I love this. I love where it goes. Okay, this a little cliche for me in a way. But when you do this down to this, that has like a real powerful thing to me. Then the C, this is just motion to me more than it is a change. And then this catches you off guard. This is really the prettiest thing to me, that right there. I mean, within context. And then our D minor.